Guys, while I was recording this video today, we saw the big dropwards down on Bitcoin. Luckily, at the start of the video before the drop, we predicted a correction downwards to something like 42K or even 40.8K, and we did go downwards to those levels and even a little bit further. So you'll get my live reaction to that correction today. You'll also get my predictions for that correction today. I do give you a direct price point where I think Bitcoin will end up during this correction. And you'll also get a long-term analysis. I do think that even now this correction is happening, I do think the most important thing we can watch is actually the monthly chart. The monthly candle is very important. We've got a level there on the monthly chart which divides historical bull markets and bear markets. Very, very important stuff. And also we're heading in towards the ETF decision, which is just under a month away. So that's big stuff as well. But guys, for the first time in 3 months, we formed a lower low on Bitcoin. We've broken the upwards trend. Huge. Let's get into it. Okay guys, 4 charts to look at today. The daily chart and the hourly chart, which are actually linked together quite closely. We then have the weekly chart, and then finally the monthly chart, which is still kind of the biggest threat for Bitcoin right now. I stand by that. The monthly chart is the biggest threat for Bitcoin right now, in my opinion. So guys, our 2 threats, right, were this chart here, the weekly, and the threat on the monthly as well. We'll discuss them both right now. They were both related to patterns that were emerging that was similar to 2019. Now, obviously, Bitcoin works on a cyclical basis. So we have the bull market, which I've just circled on all 3 occasions, the bear market, which I've done the same, and then we have that kind of mid-cycle accumulation period. I've circled all those different levels there. Right now, we are in that mid-cycle accumulation period. We've been in it here in 2015, 2016, in 2019, 2020, and also here in 2023, and going into next year in 2024. That's the mid-cycle period. So, you know, seeing that 2019 was the mid-cycle period, in fact, pretty much the same part of the cycle we're in right now, we can take kind of patterns from 2019 and perhaps apply them to where we are right now. So for example, in 2019 on this monthly chart, we rejected from the Ichimoku cloud baseline, which is the red line on the screen right now. Now, this is a line that has been very important for Bitcoin in determining directional moves. So for example, whenever we've been below this line, we've been in swift bear markets. Whenever we've been above it, we've been in swift bull markets. I mean, this has been the case throughout the entirety of Bitcoin's cyclical history since 2012. For example, it held for support in 2021. We saw the second leg of the bull market, held for support again, and when we finally lost it, we entered the actual bear market. Now we're testing it again before entering what would be, based on the baseline, a bull market, or at least a bullish kind of market. And so what you'll notice is that we haven't actually broken above it yet. Yes, we are technically above it in price currently, but we have 20 days until the candle close, and it's sitting at 42K. And if we close above 42K in 20 days, that would be a break above. But other than that, it would not be a break above. Other than that, if we close below 42K, it would be a rejection, just like what we saw in 2019. So the bearish argument right now, in my opinion, is best put as follows. If Bitcoin, rejects from this Ichimoku cloud baseline, if it closes underneath 42K, regardless of what it does in between, regardless of, a wick above, because we saw a wick above in 2019, it wasn't a problem. If we close up below this 42K level, we will see the beginning, definitively, of the mid accumulation period correction, the pre-halving correction, as some would coin it. So we could be on the edge of a pre-halving correction. And look, given the short-term TA, this is not something that's completely, irrational to assume. I mean, that right now, as we speak, we've actually broken down and formed a new lower low on the short term for the first time in this entire move upwards. In fact, when I started filming this video, I saw the breakdowns and I said, oh, look, we're going to 42K, or maybe even lower to something like 40.8, but I just didn't have time to articulate it, unfortunately. But it's live analysis. We'll get into that in a second. If we close this monthly candle below 42K, there's a very good chance we're copying what we did in 2019, which is what we had a wick above it, but we closed on top of it or below it, and then we went downwards for a few months until the halving, and then we went upwards after the halving. If we follow something like that, we do close below 42K, we'd go downwards for a few months, consolidate, potentially go downwards, potentially even as low as something like 32K. It really depends on the situation, but definitely something like 38K, 38.5K, and then we'd actually go upwards after the halving. As of right now, if we're looking at the short-term data, look, on the daily chart, we've just seen this kind of double top formation. Look at that, 2 rejections off that 44.6K level that we identified a couple of videos ago. 2 separate rejections from that level. That's a double top formation right there, clear M pattern. We've broken below the neckline, we've broken below the M just now, just 15 minutes ago, 10 minutes ago, and we're heading towards 42K. I believe we will test 42K, and look, we probably drop below that as well. It really depends on what happens at that time in the market. We'll have to discuss that tomorrow, potentially. I haven't actually had time to look into this, as I just said. This is happening while I'm filming, but we have broken, and this is huge news, right? This is really big news. We have broken, right, the previous low. We have broken the short-term upwards trend. If we go to the 4-hourly chart, okay, and we zoom back, you can see that not once, not one single time in this entire move upwards since September, right, September 11th, have we broken, right, a low on this short-term chart. We've never gone below a previous low, a previous actual low, right? That is pretty big. That's a big thing. We've broken the short-term upwards trend for the first time since September 11th, right? Literally 3 months ago, right? Because it's the 11th of December today. Literally the first time in 3 months, and you can see the price just barreling downwards as we film this video. And look at that. Just as I'm filming here, we're reaching that 42k level, just like as I said, 42k is being reached. And look, it's just perfect timing. I mean, now we're testing 42k, and 42k is the baseline on the Ichimoku cloud, which we need to be closing above. So the question is, do we close above that level in 20 days from now? You know, if we do close above 42k in 20 days from now, that's actually a really, really good sign for Bitcoin, because that's not a level we jump below and above just randomly out of nowhere. Once we get above that level, we get above that level, right? I would not expect the Ichimoku cloud baseline to break to the downside after breaking up above it until after the top in 2025. So this is a really, really important zone right now. But as for the weekly chart, right, this is what I want to discuss in this video. The weekly chart has something that's quite interesting as well. And now, look, we closed the weekly candle above it. We closed the weekly candle above this red line on the RSI. And the red line on the RSI, as I said, you know, on the monthly chart, we're in a way repeating what we saw in 2019 to a certain extent. We could be, at least, where we're seeing that mid-cycle correction. Now, in 2019, we had this ascending support line on the RSI, and we had this level at 79 on the RSI, which we rejected from twice. After the second rejection from that level, we went downwards, we broke that yellow support line, we saw the mid-cycle correction. Now, we could be doing the same thing here. We closed the weekly candle above that level, right, which is what I discussed at the start of the video. But as of right now, I mean, in this correction, it could very well stand to reason that that was just a vague price level rather than a precise one. And we could reject from that red level, go down, break below this yellow line, see the mid-cycle correction, and go upwards after April. That could really happen, and that could bring the price down quite dramatically. So the bearish threat that I thought was obsolete, actually, in this recent drop has been proved very much valid and very much real. And now the price is just spiraling downwards even further, as you see, to 40k. And this is all live, right? So I'm going to post this video, and at the start of the video, you guys probably think, oh, he filmed this video a while ago. Well, the price now reached 40.8k, and this this pre-halving correction that I've been calling for weeks now, as everyone gets rapidly more and more bullish as the days past, has been proven correct. Very, very intriguing. So short-term analysis is not going to be holding up at the moment. Obviously, if we flip to the 15-minute chart, we're just going to see massive red candles. Yeah, that's not going to be very good for short-term analysis. I'm going to pause my recording here and go to Twitter and see if I can find a reason for this event, because obviously I've been recording, I haven't had time to, so let me see real quick. So struggling to find a direct reason, but I can point you towards some of the funding rates on altcoins. So you look at the funding rates on kind of these top altcoins over the last couple of days, and you can see just all of them being negative, all of them being red, which is, you know, a big deal, right? It means the entire market is kind of pushed way too hard to the upside, to in overbought territory massively. So it's not surprising at all this drop has occurred. Now, the speed of a drop is impressive. Perhaps there is a reason that I'm missing here. As I said, I'm filming the video as of current, but the fact that we dropped below these 3 yellow lines that I listed in my previous videos, and the fact that I started making the video up at 43k, 43.5k roughly, expecting a drop down below this neckline of this M formation here, is very intriguing. Now, the speed of the drop was particularly, you know, impressive, I suppose, but that just goes to show, guys, you know, and it's what we've been saying for the last few weeks. That just goes to show, when you see a move upwards in 3 months, 80%, a 79% move upwards in 3 months with no correction whatsoever, not medium term, not short term, zero correction whatsoever. When you finally see that correction, right, it's like undoing the nozzle to a pipe that has a massive amount of pressure. It just bloody explodes. So this is not surprising at all, right? I mean, the speed of a drop, yes, slightly surprising, but the fact that it had speed, the fact that it happened with haste, is not surprising at all. Now, where are our support levels? Here's the big question, right? Because obviously we're analyzing this live. We can speak about support levels. We can't really speak about short-term TA. Short-term TA doesn't work on a drop like this, but we can speak about the nearest support. Now, as I said before, the best way to look at support in this regard is to go to something like the weekly chart and bring up something like the volume profile, right? We're currently downwards in the price quite heavily, down at around 41k. All right, if we look at the volume profile on the weekly chart, we can see the next major spike on the volume profile, on Bitstamp at least, is actually down here at 38k, 38.5k. That is where our major support is on the macro level. Now, with that said, we didn't test the macro level resistance, so it's not certain that we test the macro level support. If we want to use visual identification methods, right, the next support is actually stemming from this yellow line. Now, if we went to the 4-hourly chart, right, let's go to the 4-hourly chart and take a look at this yellow line. It's not actually fixed up perfectly. Let me just fix it up. If we went to the hourly chart, for example, we'd see there actually is another support test in between this candle here. So it is a valid line, that's for sure. But the next support from this yellow support line is actually at around currently 37k, but it's moving upwards rapidly. If we test it in a week from now, for example, it could be 38.9k. But like it says on the the volume profile, for example, the macro level actually stems at around 38.5k. We do have brief support at 40.8k. That's already been tested. It hasn't been lost yet. It was a rough test, but that's because of the volatility. But in terms of macro support, the next actual support level on Bitcoin, it's actually sitting at 38.5k. Right, so that's the next actual support level, the actual macro support level on Bitcoin. This is very clearly a double top formation now. I'm a little bit suspicious about this move just because, generally speaking, when you see huge moves like this to the upside of a downside, it's generally preceding a pretty major news event. So perhaps there's ETF news coming. Look, that's not confirmed. That's just my kind of inclination is to believe that perhaps there's ETF news coming. Perhaps there's some big news event coming that hasn't been released yet. As of what I'm seeing right now, there's nothing that's come out at the moment. And perhaps this is some sort of scam. But look, the TA definitely lined up with the correction. You know, we had 3 months of upwards trend without any correction whatsoever. We saw this big drop down as we dropped below these 3 yellow lines. There's no doubt about that. I mean, so the TA is lined up for a correction. If we go to daily chart RSI, I'm curious to see what this looks like actually. Yep, daily chart RSI is broken below this RSI support line in yellow that we had. That's not good to see at all. And so we could be tumbling down on the RSI to something lower. Again, I think that from a TA perspective, the logical thing to do would be come down and retest this 38.5k support zone, or at least this yellow line here, which could be a little bit higher at the time. That's the logical thing to do from a TA perspective, but I am just a little bit suspicious about potential news events that could release soon. Regardless, before we were so rudely interrupted by the short-term price action just going absolutely ballistic, the point I was trying to make in this video was in relation to the baseline of the Ichimoku cloud on the monthly chart. If we close above that Ichimoku cloud baseline at 42k or above, we're looking very, very good on a macro scale. And if we close below it, we're looking at pretty rough on a macro scale. But that doesn't mean it's unhealthy, right? By rough, I mean we will be seeing a mid-cycle correction of significance that could last months, but it certainly wouldn't be unhealthy. In fact, that would probably be the healthy thing to do because that's exactly what we did in 2019. And I have made my point in previous videos. I believe that Bitcoin is too far ahead right now. I believe it's moving too fast. That was the whole point of my video the day before yesterday. We're looking at this chart, which shows the price on Bitcoin from all-time high to a break of the all-time high from left to right. You can see that the black line is the cycle we're in right now. We're deviating too high. We're too high above the baseline of where we're meant to be. In the last 2 cycles, we were further down. Right now, we're deviating too high. So I do believe this correction is healthy that we're currently seeing. And an extension to this correction that could last 100 or 200 days would also be healthy. I don't believe that Bitcoin will go down. I don't believe there's any real possibility whatsoever, unless something absolutely unprecedented happens, that Bitcoin will go down and break its 15k low. I believe the bottom is well and truly, and I've believed that for close to a year, right? So I don't believe that there's any real threat on a cyclical level for Bitcoin. I do believe that a correction would be healthy. It wouldn't, of course, people don't like seeing corrections. They don't like seeing it, but at the end of the day, it needs to happen. And when people get too conditioned to 3 months of upside price action without any correction whatsoever, an 80% gain across Bitcoin, and probably even more so on certain altcoins, people get too conditioned. They get too used to it. They get greedy. And this kind of stuff that we've seen in the last hour has to bring them back to reality, and bring them back to earth. So I've overall said, over the last weeks, I know that I've kind of pointed out to what I've said historically before, but over the last few weeks, I've been saying, we shouldn't be buying on this move. I personally did not buy on this move. And that's something I've been very, very clear about. If you look at my YouTube titles and my YouTube thumbnails, you can see that even without watching the content. I didn't believe that buying at 38.5k breakout was a good idea because of the fact that you don't buy into a 3-month upwards trend. You just don't do that. It's just based on greed. There's no TA involved in making a decision like that. We've had very clear bearish RSI divergence. We have very clear descending volume on the volume chart. You know, this is stuff that it represents exhaustion. You don't buy into exhaustion. And I believe that, you know, when people were saying buy even as high as 44k because we'd go to 48 allegedly. And I was saying, why would you do that? Because even if we go to 48, we're going to reject from there. We're going to go down to something like 40, and then you can just buy at 40, right? So the risk reward ratio just simply wasn't there. Now, as I said, I am a little bit suspicious about this downwards price action. It could be preceding a news event. And a news event could be something like the ETF decision. What I will say is this, right? I've been saying quite a lot, really, over the last few weeks. Again, I'm referencing the history of this channel, that I believe the ETF event, the ETF approval or denial, I believe even if the ETF was approved, even in this vicious upwards trend, it would be a sell the news event. Now, I said that if we do not correct before the ETF decision, it would be a sell the news event. Because obviously this move has been caused by speculation in regards to ETFs. And that's no surprise, right? The price moves for a reason. In this case, the reason it moved was because people were expecting an ETF approval massively, and so they're pricing it in. This whole move has been a price in of the ETF approval. Of course it has, or at least partially. And so if the ETF was actually approved, it would lead to a downside move in the market. But now that we're seeing a correction start to take place, I'm not exactly sure that would be the case, because I would only be 100% sure that this would be a sell the news event if we did not see a correction before the news actually came out. Because if the price was just upwards for 4 months, right, and we're up at 48k 100% from where we started, and then the ETF was approved, who else is buying at that point? Because everyone who was buying based on the ETF approval already bought because they expected an approval. No one else is buying, so it's just take profit time. That's just that's just how news events work. It's sell the news. If you see a pump before a news event, it's pricing in the news event. So when the news event actually happens, there's no one left to buy. Everyone who cared about the news event has already bought because it's priced in. So that's just basic, fundamental analysis. But now that we're seeing a correction, it does kind of bring validity back to the ETF pump claim. So we'll have to monitor that over the next few days as well. Lots of things to monitor over the next few days. By the time we release the next video, this short-term price action will have developed and we can actually speak about the short-term a little bit more. But overall, as I said, the importance of this video was regards to the monthly candle. I still stand by that. I still think the monthly candle is the most important thing that will happen to Bitcoin over the foreseeable future. Obviously the ETF event as well, but the fact of the matter is the ETF event is out of our control. It's unpredictable. We can't predict what it's going to be, and we can't predict where it's going to take Bitcoin. Now, my inclination is it's going to be approved. I have various reasons to believe that. I've spoken about them in the past, but I don't know what that is going to do to the price action. I can only guess. But with TA, I actually have evidence. There's no evidence in regards to ETF speculation. There is evidence in regards to charts. So interesting stuff. Definitely an interesting thing, the video to film today, because it's not often you see such dramatic short-term movement in between recordings. So interesting. But guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I hope you found the video useful, even though it was a bit disjointed because of that event. In the short term, check out the Bingx and Bitget exchange. Bingx is a global non-KYC exchange. You can sign up from anywhere in the world. Some countries are restricted, but you can use a VPN, get around it very easily. It's non-KYC. They'll never check your location or anything like that. Check it out. And then Bitget is global KYC. Everywhere in the world except for the USA and Singapore, I believe, is available to sign up. And potentially the Netherlands, I think. And then we've got the lowest fees in the game, really. If you look at any fee comparison website, Bingx and Bitget are going to come out on top basically every single time. We've also got protection funds in case they are hacks, and you've got a clean track record with no hacks on their track record. So very good exchanges, very safe historically. Check out my referral links below for 15% trading fee discounts and sign up to help yourself and help the channel. Check out the Crypto Academy if you want to learn how to trade. The Become a Trader 10-unit course will teach you everything you need to know about trading. All the information's on the website there, including contact details. And finally, if you look on Telegram, we have the VIP information and results group. This is kind of like a a pre-group group, right? So you join this group, you get the information, you get payment information, you make the payment, and you join the actual VIP group. All the information about VIPs on this group, including a PDF of all of our historical trading results, a 14-day free trial membership, and also the pricing information for 3 months, 6 month, and 1 year membership. So check that out. It's all on the description below as well. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in my next video. Cheers.